All right, so good morning, everybody. I would like to call this meeting to order. Mary, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, good morning, everyone. So on the line, I see John Donovan, Jeffrey Shriver, Mayor Shelkey, Mayor Rockingham. Am I missing any other committee members who are on the line?
Yes, Dan Burke, see that?
Great, thank you, Dan.
Kevin just texted that he's logging in now. He's running a few minutes behind.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
And Mary, I think we also have Tara Orban representing the counties as an advisory member and Michael Horsting representing the RTA as an advisory member.
Okay, thank you, Kama.
All right. Moving on then to the next item, agenda changes and announcements. Before we dive in here, I'd like to remind everyone that as permitted by the governor's disaster declaration, excuse me, of June 25th, 2021, the determination has been made that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent for this committee. To ensure that the meeting is as transparent as possible, staff posted the meeting materials 1 week in advance, and we will provide a recording of this meeting linked on our website, and we'll take all votes by roll call. As usual, we'd ask that everyone please mute themselves when not speaking and feel free to use the chat box, which staff is monitoring throughout the meeting. At this time, staff's not proposing any agenda changes, but I do have one announcement and one introduction to make. The announcement is a reminder that CMAP has extended the deadline for nominations for the CMAP Regional Excellence Awards to next Wednesday, July 7th. If you haven't already, please consider submitting a nomination for a plan, a project, an initiative, a person or an organization that has improved quality of life for residents in the region. And more information about that program is front and center on the CMAP webpage. Also, for those that haven't virtually met him yet, I just wanted to introduce Yusuf Salama, CMAP's new Deputy Executive Director for Research Analysis and Programming. Yusuf comes to us with several years' experience in both the private and public sector, where much of his focus was on the implementation of public-private partnerships. I know he's looking forward to engaging in the regional programming process with all of you. Yusuf, did you want to say anything this morning? Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. Amateur mistake there. I just wanted to wish everyone a very good morning. And it's certainly be a pleasure to get to know all of you as we go forward for the remainder of the year. I'm excited by the opportunities that we have in front of us, but I'll keep my comments short. I know you have a very full agenda. So Kama, thank you very much for the introduction and wishing you best with the meeting.
All right, thank you and welcome. Are there any requested agenda changes or announcements from the rest of the committee?
Hi, I just want to note Kevin O'Malley, I'm now present here. Thanks.
Thank you, Kevin. All right, hearing nothing further, let's move on to our first item of business, which is approval of the April 1st meeting minutes. Those minutes were posted with the meeting materials last week. Before I entertain a motion, are there any comments or corrections to those minutes? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of April 1st as presented?
Jeff Shelkey will make the recommendation.
Second by Mayor Rockingham.
Okay, a motion by Mayor Shelkey, second by Mayor Rockingham. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, Mary, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, Dan Burke.
Dan was muted, but I'm going to use my lip reading skills and say that was an aye.
Sounds good. Kama Dobbs.
Aye.
Tara Orban.
Aye.
Michael Horsting.
David.
Kevin O'Malley.
Aye.
Mayor Rockingham.
Aye.
Mayor Shelkey.
Aye.
And Jeffrey Shriver.
Jeff, was that an aye?
Aye.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yep, got you now. Thank you. All right, with that, the motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Click. All right. Next on our agenda is committee membership. At our last meeting, we did have a brief discussion under other business regarding adding FTA as an advisory member to this committee. So today staff is requesting that we go ahead and formalize this and approve the recommendation and welcome Tony Greep as the representative of the FTA effective immediately. Is there a motion for approval of this membership change?
So
Jeff
move,
Shelby.
Mayor Rockingham.
Second, Barry Shelkey.
Rockingham as making the motion and Mayor Shelkey as the second. Is there any discussion? Okay. Hearing none. Mary, roll call again.
Okay, Dan Burke,
Aye.
Hannah Dobbs,
Aye.
Tara Orban,
Aye.
thank you. Michael Horsting,
I believe I'm a non-voting member, but welcome Tony to the committee.
oh, thanks for the correction, Michael.
Advisory member. Thank you.
Yeah, same for counties, I believe. We're non-voting.
Gotcha, okay. Kevin O'Malley,
Aye.
Mayor Rockingham,
Aye.
Mayor Shelkey,
Aye.
and Jeffrey Schreiber.
All right, the motion carries. Moving on to the meaty part of our agenda. Item number 5 is the staff recommended program. So for this item, I'm going to go ahead and put my staff hat on for a few minutes here. Find my notes. All right. So the memo in your meeting materials, which was updated on Monday, contains an overview of the scoring, program development process, and staff recommended shared fund program. As noted in the memo, a total of 61 applications were received from 42 unique applicants. Those applications were screened for eligibility, and 5 ineligible applications were eliminated due to either not having phase 1 engineering complete or not being included in a plan, and 1 project was eliminated for the cost and partners eligibility. Many of the 54 eligible applicants did request evaluation in more than 1 project type category. So staff conducted 108 total evaluations following the methodology approved by this committee. These evaluations resulted in a set of preliminary scoring. Preliminary scores were evaluated to determine which project category yielded the highest score for each application, and then lower scoring instances of projects were removed from the evaluation. Because the improvement score for projects is calculated relative to all other projects within each project type category, all improvement scores and thus total scores are recalculated at this point, and draft final scores are produced. Both the preliminary and draft final scores were provided to this committee, all of the region's planning liaisons, CDOT staff, as well as applicant contacts, along with documentation and frequently asked questions about the evaluation process. The comments we heard most often from applicants were generally requests to understand a specific score, or requests for us to consider items such as policies that were adopted or milestones that were hit after the call for projects closed. Naturally, staff did not consider these requests for things that happened after the application deadline. One applicant did suggest that staff misinterpreted a phase 2 milestone and did not assign the proper points for project readiness. Staff did review that application and our interpretation, including the status update schedule and other attachments that were included with the application, and we did agree with the applicant's suggestion. This resulted in us adjusting not only that applicant's score, but also 6 other project scores where the status was interpreted the same. So that added 2.5 points to 7 total projects. When updating the draft scoring to reflect these changes to those 7 projects, staff mistakenly applied the changes to the preliminary scores rather than to the draft final scores. This error caused the rank order of projects carried forward to program development to be incorrect. A recommended program was posted last Thursday that was based on these incorrect project rankings. This error was discovered early Friday morning, and the materials that had been posted Thursday afternoon were quickly removed from the website while staff located the point at which the error occurred and made appropriate corrections. Before I move on, I do want to very sincerely apologize to the committee for this error, which was made by me, and assure you that as a team, CMAP has already taken proactive steps to ensure that our internal processes are improved so something like that doesn't happen again. Proceeding forward then with the corrected final scores and project rankings, staff developed the recommended program by stepping through the projects in rank order, programming funds in the year requested if funds were available. If funds were not available, staff followed the programming process described in the application booklet, first attempting to accommodate the fully requested funding amount in a later year, and then considering partial funding based on the minimum amount that sponsors indicated in their applications that they would be able to accept. If all requested phases of a project could not be accommodated at the minimum requested level, the project was skipped over and the next highest ranking project was considered. This process took place in collaboration with the staff that was developing the CMAC and TAP programs so that funding across all three of those programs could be maximized. Staff also referred to the application attachments and consulted with sponsors of projects that were recently selected by IDOT for ITEP funding and adjusted the funding requests for the shared fund accordingly for those projects that had received ITEP awards. The programming decisions for each individual project are documented in the programming remarks column of the combined funding recommendation and summary scores file that was posted with the meeting materials. The resulting staff recommended program, drumroll, which is shown here, includes 8 projects that were programmed in federal fiscal years 2022 through 2024 prior to this call cycle. So those are the 8 projects kind of grayed out at the top of the list. And then in this cycle, we're proposing adding 9 new projects with programming in federal fiscal years 2025 and 2026. 3 of the 9 new projects are within the city of Chicago, 5 are within suburban Cook County, and 1 is within the collar counties. Within these projects, over $4 million is proposed for cohort 4, or our highest need communities. $386,000 of this is toll credits for 2 projects that requested funding for phase 1 engineering only. Overall, about a third of the projects are located in small communities with populations of less than 25,000, and combined the projects serve nearly 8 million jobs and households. And more than half of the projects will be improving facilities where more than 20% of the users are minorities below the poverty line. The selected projects also strongly support our complete streets, green infrastructure, and freight planning factors as detailed in the committee's memo. All eligible projects that applied for the shared fund that were not recommended for funding are recommended to be carried forward in the contingency program, where they can be considered for any additional funding that may come to the region or that may be made available through active program management in the future. The next step in our process is to release the staff recommendation for public comment starting this afternoon through Friday, July 30th. Following the public comment period, staff will present a summary of comments and any recommended changes to the draft programs for discussion at this committee's August meeting. Final consideration by this committee is scheduled on September 9th. After the committee approves a program, a TIP amendment will be prepared for CMAP Transportation Committee consideration for them to make a recommendation for approval to the MPO Policy Committee and CMAP Board for consideration at their joint meeting in October. So at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions about the process or the recommended program. Absolutely no questions. I see everybody's muted. There we go.
Well, Cam, if I could, this is Kevin O'Malley from CDOT. I just want to, not really a question, but I just want to thank you for the hard work. And I know how hard it is to put these things together. And I know, we as a committee made some adjustments from the last round to this round. And I think there's, it's successfully moving forward. And so I want to thank you for that. So
thank you, Kevin.
No question, just a comment.
Awesome, thank you. And I will pass that on to the team of dozens that helped with the scoring and evaluation. So thank you. Any other comments or questions? If not,
This is Mayor Rockingham. I just want to echo what was said. I mean, the staff did an excellent job putting this together, and I know it's not always easy, but I think this is fair and a good process.
Thank you, Mayor. All right. Seeing no one else clamoring to unmute themselves, at this time, I'm going to put my chairman's hat back on here and request a motion from the committee to proceed with opening the public comment period this afternoon through July 30th.
Jeff Shelkey, so moves.
Mayor Shelkey,
Mayor Rockingham, second.
fantastic. Mary, will you go ahead and call the roll?
Okay, Dan Burke,
Aye.
Kama Dobbs,
Aye.
Kevin O'Malley,
Aye.
Mayor Rockingham,
Aye.
Mayor Shelkey,
Aye.
Jeff Shriver.
Was that a thumbs up, Jeff, for an aye?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Mary. The motion does carry. I do want to take a minute to say thank you to all of our applicants for submitting great projects and to the many staff that contributed to the evaluation of these projects. Once again, I think this committee is presenting a solid program for the public's consideration that's derived from the hard work of this committee to develop an evaluation methodology that considers both the principles of ON2 2050 and the extreme need for targeted improvements to our region's transportation infrastructure. So thank you, everybody. It's a true group effort on this. Moving on then to our next item is the shared fund status update for the current program. Elliot Lewis is here today to provide that overview. Elliot?
Thank you, Kama. As noted in the agenda, as we're still receiving and reviewing project updates, the quarterly status summaries posted to the STP webpage are current as of June 23rd. Staff is continuing to review updates and will post revised status reports in early July. A number of active program management actions were taken following the review of the March quarterly status updates, including $2.5 million for Phase 1 engineering for the University Park Metro Station reconstruction was reprogrammed from federal fiscal year 2022 up to 2021 based on a target authorization date of June 2021. Also, $2.5 million for construction of the Joe Orr Road extension was reprogrammed from federal fiscal year 2021 to 2022 based on a target letting of August 2022. Also, 4 obligation extensions were requested and approved for project phases programmed in federal fiscal year 2021. Irving Park at Bartlett construction and construction engineering, targeting a July 2021 letting. The Milwaukee Avenue construction phase is targeting an August letting. Canal Street Viaducts construction and construction engineering, targeting September letting. And the Prairie Street right-of-way phase, targeting March 2022 authorization. And with that, we'll field any questions if you have them.
Any questions for Elliot? I see nothing in chat either. All right. Thank you, Elliot. As always, if anyone has questions about status of any projects, they're welcome to contact staff. Next on our agenda is the regional accounting update. This was an item that was introduced at our last meeting, just the continual monitoring of the financial activities of the shared fund and local programs that takes place by staff. The attached accounting summary is current through June 23rd. Since our last meeting, $18 million more has been obligated within the region, bringing the total obligations for federal fiscal year 21 to a little over $63 million. We've also captured about $750,000 in obligation remainders, which are the difference between the amount programmed for projects, which tend to be round numbers that end in zeros, and the actual funds that are obligated down to the dollar on based on project final estimates. Active program management, particularly at the local level, has been quite active, with many project cost increases being accommodated, and projects being elevated from contingency programs to active programs. So similar to what Elliot just described for the shared fund is going on in all 11 councils in the city of Chicago as well. And so the accounting update is capturing that. Are there any questions regarding the accounting update that was posted with the meeting materials? Seeing none, hearing none. Thank you again. Always feel free to contact staff for details or updates. Moving on then to other business. I thought we had a pretty full agenda, but here we're already at other business. Staff doesn't have anything additional, but do any members of the committee have any other business they want to discuss this morning? Going once, going twice. All right, then let's go ahead and move on to public comments. Staff did not receive any public comment prior to the start of today's meeting. I don't see anything in the chat box. Mary or Elliot, do you see anything?
Jeremy has a question.
Great. Yes, Jeremy, please. Jeremy Glover from MPC.
Yes, good morning. I was just curious, and maybe this has been discussed in the past, but has the committee ever considered whether there should be like a lower threshold in terms of points to be included in the contingency plan? Because hypothetically, if money just rained out of the sky, every single thing that was technically eligible could get funded in the STP shared fund, even if it had an extremely low score.
That's kind of an interesting observation, Jeremy, and we have not had a discussion of that as part of our methodology. I think it would be fair to do so. I think what really happens, at least what happened in the last cycle, is projects that are lower scoring often tend to not be ready, and so in the fall when we announce the final approved program, we do send a notice out to everyone potentially to be included in the contingency program and seek confirmation. So, even in an atmosphere like we're in now, where there's a potential for additional funds from federal reauthorization, relief funds, potential earmarks, I think that those applicants that just don't have the capacity to keep projects ready to go wind up declining to be carried on the contingency list. The contingency list does come with some reporting requirements and making progress in order to be considered for funding. So, but if this committee wants to entertain setting a threshold, I think that that's a legitimate discussion to have. So, thoughts from committee members on this?
I think in theory, this is a reasonable thing to consider. I suppose if we did find ourselves in a position someday where money was raining from the sky and we ran out of projects, we could always convene this committee and decide to dig deeper into the applicants, to make sure that our contingent list is as long as possible. And we do have that sort of ability, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're on a regular call for project schedule, but that doesn't mean that there can't be a special call if our funding situation changed significantly. The other thing that this committee could consider in cooperation with the city and the councils is that the city has a pretty robust local program contingency list, as do all 11 councils. So, while those are evaluated under, unique criteria for each council, there may be some merit in this committee considering those again if we had a windfall of funding come into the region. And I think this would be a great problem to have for this region, to have a windfall of funding where we start talking about, do we have enough projects? So, Jeremy, thank you very much for the comment. And I think that staff's making a note of this, and as we go through the next year, ahead of our next call for project cycle in 2023, we'll add this to our lessons learned discussion over the next year, and see if we do want to set some minimum thresholds for remaining on that list. So thank you. Any other members of the audience that would like to make a comment or ask a question? I don't see any in the chat. If you did want to make a comment, go ahead and unmute yourself and state your name. All right. Seeing no others, going to move on. Our next meeting is scheduled for August 19th at 9:30 a.m. As mentioned earlier, that meeting will be primarily for the purpose of discussing the results of the public comment period. At this time, we're not sure what the location and format will be. The governor's current disaster declaration from June 25th does note that the modifications to the Open Meetings Act are scheduled to expire on July 24th. So if no action is taken either by the governor to extend that declaration or by the General Assembly to permanently modify the Open Meetings Act to allow committees members to participate virtually, then we may actually need to meet in person rather than want to meet in person, though I think we're all excited about getting back to in-person meetings. So staff is monitoring that extremely closely, of course, because of the volume of committees that we have, and we will be in touch with committee members as soon as we know anything for sure. But do want to warn everyone that if there is a change to that status and we need to have that in-person meeting to comply with Open Meetings Act, we will. So stay tuned on that one.
A question on a comment on that. Does CMAP have the capability to do hybrid meetings? If that's enough.
Yeah, staff is exploring all kinds of options. We have begun testing the use of video and audio in our conference rooms. I haven't personally been involved in that, but I heard from Doug and Elliot and Terry this morning that they did some testing in the office yesterday, and those tests were successful. So, the Open Meetings Act requires the voting members of the committee to be present at the meeting location. So that's the part that we're going to have to keep our eye on. As far as audience being able to call in to a format like this, I think we're going to have no problem accommodating that, and we'll probably do our best to have a hybrid meeting so that we can have full participation from the public. So, but not a commitment. That's facilities and management that'll need to make that final commitment. But it sounds like we're moving in that direction.
Great. No, thank you. I think all of us are contemplating hybrid meetings in the future, and how do we logistically and technologically arrange that? So interesting.
For sure. I think, personally thinking that we've been through a lot over this last year and all adjusted to this technology, and it would be a shame to go back to just a telephone broadcast of meetings, So crossing our fingers that we'll all get it worked out and, enhance our public participation in these meetings. So thank you. Before I adjourn, anything else for the good of the committee? If not, with there being no other business, I will declare this meeting adjourned at 10:01. Thank you, everyone.